Okay, now it should be live. I'm not having the error that I'm having before. I'm here with Honks and with Glebs, and anybody in my Discord is welcome to go ahead and hop in. I got that Hangouts link just hanging out there. Very, very sloppy. Would you guys like to introduce yourself? You could say how you prefer to be referred to. Any pronouns, if you want to let us know any pronouns. Anything you want to
Um,
shill, or just how you're doing, or all of the
Senate self.
above. Sorry, what was that?
My pro-
My pronouns are Senate and Senate self.
Senate and Senate self. Those are good.
And boy, I don't see this.
Sounds is weeb.
Weeb self.
I have other stuff. I have other things, but I don't want you to get in trouble. your channel taken down. So
Well, my pronouns are the N word, but I guess even
my
I'm not allowed to use my own pronouns. That's how oppressed I am. I can't even use my own pronouns without being shut down for no reason.
exactly.
Yeah, and it is live right now. I see the link right here. So that's
Okay, yes,
Looks like
I see
we're
it now
good.
too.
all right. I'll go ahead and current events are kind of spooky enough, right? As it is, but then also a few of these are a little bit flavorful. If anybody actually watching, I have like some cut up clips of a horror movie I butchered and with some pumpkins and things. So the production quality is I think much higher than average for my streams here. I'm pretty happy with myself. so so let's see, Hunks, you had brought up Jessica Yaniv. I guess we'll get it out of the way. Most people think it's good news. I don't. I don't. I when I said that Jessica Yaniv is the hero we all deserve, I mean it. I fucking mean it. And like I wanted Jessica Yaniv to just absolutely destroy all of the businesses and raise as much hell as possible and really fucking punish people for supporting this kind of civil rights legislation style bullshit. But no, it turns out, of course, what always happens with these is, you have these rules that make no sense, and they just kind of arbitrarily decide to selectively enforce it. So they've just decided, nope, Jessica Yaniv isn't really operating in good faith, so we're not going to go through with it. Which I get it, it makes sense, but it's like, why would anyone want this Canadian system with these human rights tribunals to prevail? You know what I mean? And it's such a thin standard, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, they just kind of decided that in this case, she's not being, legitimate. She's not being authentic with it. But it's like, it never is. It's never legitimate discrimination because if you're actually being discriminated against, you don't want to do business with these people. You don't want to be employed by them, right? The argument's true by definition. But no, we're gonna keep on honking in fucking clown world and just pretend that civil rights make sense.
Yeah. Also, I think that Jonathan or Jessica rather, I don't think that they're actually a girl or like a female. I think that they're just using the label transgender to get fucking victimhood points. 'Cause they seem
Yeah.
that let's be the type of person. But basically, they're giving ammo to the radical feminists. Like they're pointing out they're pointing out that this crazy person basically is fucking assaulting people, like shutting down businesses. They're using that as ammo to point out that hey, all these transgender people are like mentally ill, perverted men. And the thing is that conservatives take the fucking bait. Like I've actually had discussions with Black Knight Patriarch about this, and I completely agree with them. Conservatives are taking the bait on this, and it's fucking stupid because there's lots of like decent transgender people out there. Like Blair White comes to mind.
I don't know about Blair White since she's pretty much a scam artist. Remember when she faked attack on her when she was working with a Trump hat?
Right, but you get what I mean.
Do you
Like,
are you sure? Are you sure she actually faked that? I
Yeah,
know
she,
people
she
were
actually
suspicious, but I don't think that's ever
yeah, she actually well, when she was pressed, I think she admitted that it was
really.
staged.
I didn't hear that part of it, but I know the one you're talking about. I know
Hello.
people were very suspicious
Oh,
about
hello
it.
there.
hello,
Hello
Ashley.
there, Ashley.
All
Right,
right.
but you get what I'm saying, right?
Well, since she's a liar, she in my book is she's disqualified from being a decent human being. If she is willing to lie for attention and for victim points, she's no better than GWs.
So, have you
Yep.
guys reviewed anything yet, or
We're talking
we
about
just got
the
started.
Yaniv thing. But yeah,
Sorry?
my point. We're talking about the Yaniv thing that happened. They got denied
Okay.
their court thing. But basically, you get my point. Like, there's lots of decent transgender people out there that I've met, and like conservatives always take the bait of like these rad femme turfs because like they're just, it seems, but the conservatives completely fucking ignore that because they're gynocentric, morons, and they just want to protect their own little traditional values. That's all they care about. They don't care that they're going to make life for men even worse, possibly, and just destroy any sort of like relationship that women could have. So I don't think that things are looking good when it comes to the rad femme side because like I don't like when you need for the reason that they're giving people like them ammo.
No, I agree, and it is like this unholy alliance between like tradcons and turfs basically, and it does annoy me because it actually kind of ties into this recent issue with like Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk, which it's very funny. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to like look at some of that.
No, I haven't.
from what I can gather about him and his acolytes, it's basically conservative values equals Israel, etc. is basically it.
Yeah, well, here's what's funny about it is like I like to watch Tree of Logic, right? And she's very
Oh,
critical of Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA from one angle, right? Where she says, "No, you guys just want to move black people from one plantation to another." So she jokes and calls him Massa Charlie and stuff, and it's very funny. And I think a lot of her criticisms are completely valid, right? So you have that on one angle, huh?
What's her argument for that? Sorry.
Well,
That,
the argument is that it's conservatives basically engaging in a lot of these like shaming tactics of like, well, Democrats vote however you want, but if you go Democrat, you're basically a house Negro and you're on the plantation and you're not thinking for yourself, right? So, it's
Right.
It's, and there's some truth to that, and like,
But does she really imagine that the average black person in America actually wants to be completely disconnected from whitey's money? I'm not entirely convinced, I have to say.
No, and that's my point of departure from her is like I'm so sick of like people trying to pander to black people, right? They just take it for granted that like you have to say to them, "Hey, here's how we're gonna benefit your race specifically. Here's how we're gonna aren't we giving you the best thing? Aren't we doing the most?" And like the conservatives they're technically correct when they make that argument. Like in the long run, it would benefit everyone more, right? But it's something that that's something that in Turning Point USA though. So like, well, we haven't done enough to reach out to minorities, and it's totally our fault that they haven't because we haven't branded ourselves the right way. And it's just like I really do think that we can hold people to a standard that says you should do what's right and not just what's like beneficial to your subgroup, right? But no, that standard apparently is not one that most people on any side of the conversation are willing to apply. But you have that angle of it with Tree of Logic saying that basically Turning Point USA is trying to just like use black people as pawns, and that a lot of it is reflecting like what white racists want black people to be, which is an interesting angle that I think there's something there. Like I think it makes sense. But then the other end of it, right, are the people who are a little bit more closer to the identitarian part of the spectrum, who are more like Nick Fuentes fans, right? Who are kind of like leading this crusade against Turning Point USA, which is the more recent thing. So it's like they're simultaneously like racist against black people, but then also like not racist enough. And I'm kind of looking at it from both angles. Like, yeah, it's like somehow both. Like, somehow Turning Point USA is just like literally the worst that I can see from literally both sides. Like, why is this awful thing? But he did a terrible job at defending the hypocrisy of his, defense of his like stances towards Israel. And it's very, very funny to watch.
Who, Charlie Kirk?
Yeah, Charlie Kirk and his like token gay black friend.
Right.
It's such a. Well, my favorite comment was someone was like, "Oh, it's from left to right. It's Globo and Homo," and it's like, yeah, it's like. Yeah. But the reason I mentioned it because it does tie into the Yaniv thing, with this like alliance between the TERFs and the Tradcons, because basically, like, you'll have these just mouth breathing absolute idiots going up there saying, how is anal sex a part of conservative values? How is that going to, right? And like they're serious. He means it, right? Like, and it just reminds me of, it's like you're the same fucking idiots that think that like George W. Bush and the neocons were conservative. Right? You're the same Christians that make this deal with the devil, where you say, okay, liberals, like, as long as we get to have our like theocracy, we'll do as much welfare and as much socialism as you want.
Well, it's kind of a typical sort of NRX cliche, right? The idea that the right is really just 10 years behind the left in terms of their in terms of social policy at any given moment.
Yeah, well, and that the irony, of course, is that a lot of these like very Christian conservatives, like, they'll make the argument that like, well, we don't want that, and that's why we're anti-gay marriage, and it's just like to think that matters, right? But then, of course, like the way that Charlie Kirk and his like token black gay pet are like trying to spin it is they're like, well, here's how anal sex is part of our values and blah blah blah. And it's like, how. Because they're not like libertarian, right? Like, they don't have any real principles. They're just like doing what's optically really convenient to try to appeal to like create this big tent pro-Trump movement. But I don't know. One of the articles I've lined up is just in a nutshell highlighting the fact that Donald Trump is the king of debt now. He's
By the way,
really.
Were you exaggerating, or was there actually a part of the conversation where they were trying to incorporate anal sex into conservative values?
I'm exaggerating a little bit, but
right.
my point is that he's not like making any kind of principled stance, right? He's just kind of saying, I forget how I can't paraphrase it in a way that like does how stupid it was justice. I think it's something that I might like do a proper stream where like actually go through and like look at some highlights of it or make a little video or something. Or we'll be seeing clips of that for like a long time.
I could probably make an argument for anal sex being traditional values. Just give me a couple hours.
I don't really know much about Charlie Kirk, but I think Richard Spencer, say what you want about him, but he made this observation that Kirk seems to have this boy band quality to him, in the sense that he just kind of emerged from nowhere in, 2015 or 14, and all of a sudden he's at the forefront of the conservative movement, and, allegedly. It's very strange.
Yeah, and to me he totally reads as like some kind of controlled opposition. Like, he doesn't seem authentic in any way. Like a lot of times, you always have to take that angle with a grain of salt. I think for Turning Point USA, it's a very safe bet.
What, controlled op?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I thought you were about to say that, when you said Richard Spencer, I thought you would say that Richard Spencer knows a lot about taking up the ass.
I don't know. I mean, he has been.
Yeah, with Richard Spencer.
He has been married and reproduced. So, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean he's not gay, but
Yeah, well, yeah, as long as you say no homo afterwards, it's okay.
I don't know.
He's just totally gay. You've seen the video from doing karaoke to Depeche Mode.
No.
Well, if you had, if you need another nail in the coffin.
Yeah, didn't Depeche Mode like disavow him or something? It reminds me of, it must be fun in that way to be one of these really hated public figures, like someone who's even more controversial than Spencer, like David Duke. He sometimes goes around endorsing people, endorsing his political adversaries as a weapon. Like he'll say things like, "Oh, if so and so keeps saying this shit, I might have to endorse them." And then it's like the fact that they've been endorsed by David Duke taints them, and it's really funny.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably more of a silver lining though than anything. I
Yeah.
just think back to that Gavin McInnes video, right, of him just like he's just broken. He's just like, yeah, my life is fucking destroyed over all this shit. And it's like it was really sad actually. I found it quite moving. I felt pretty bad for him. But
Yeah.
you know, yeah. Especially because like they don't frickin' do anything wrong. Like it reminds me of you sent me the video earlier today from Mr. Atheist where he's responding to Stefan Molyneux, and I'm going through their comment section, and like his followers say like the dumbest crap. They're like, well, of course Stefan Molyneux's divorced, and I'm like, I looked it up, and I'm like, no. He had a video where the title was "My wife is divorcing me" because that was the topic that the caller brought up, right? Like he does call-in shows where the title is a quote from what was sent to him or a paraphrasing of like the issue, right? And it's usually kind of clickbaity. But like they're so freaking dumb that they just saw that and assumed, oh, haha, see, he divorced his wife, and it's like, no, it didn't happen. But they're talking about like, oh yeah, he divorced his wife because he was an asshole, and it's like not only did this divorce not happen, but you're like making up reasons because you're stupid. And then like they're posting like, oh look, he plays Minecraft with his daughter, and they're like, wow, I wouldn't expect a narco-capitalist, ultra-conservative alt-righter to do something like that. And it's like those things aren't even making sense. And like, why would you even think that's like a
They're all
contradiction?
completely fucking separate.
Huh?
Like,
yeah,
all those are completely fucking separate too. Like, fascism and like in National Socialism is completely like the 180 from fucking narco-capitalism.
yeah.
You know, was it Red Ice Radio that they tried to unironically introduce the concept of anarcho-fascism? Like, what the hell?
I remember that. That was funny.
Yeah, well, that's you
Robert
create
Chico.
you create like a commune, but then everybody wears Hugo Boss gear.
Right. And they're gone from YouTube now. Oh, by the way, that Mr. Atheist channel, did you notice something interesting? It has a verification check mark, which tells you pretty much everything you need to know.
I saw that, dude, and he is complaining about how like Twitter is so toxic because Stefan Molyneux's on there, and I'm like, oh, you and your fucking YouTube checkmark are gonna talk about like platforms being like taken over and toxic and whatever, like ugh.
Yeah, and he's also going to make a big song and dance about what a free thinker he is,
All the time, right? It's like yeah, he talks about skepticism like it's his religion. And like so in my favorite Murdoch episode, one of them was The Cruel Fate of Kekistan, right?
Oh, I love that one. Oh my
It's
god,
so
that's my
good.
favorite.
Yeah, where they're all gathered around and they're like doing their their whole incantation about how they're like a cult basically for skepticism and for logic and stuff. And like he's that but unironically. Also shout out to Patricia in the chat. Nice to see you've made it. So you're familiar with Mr. Atheist. She says Mr. Atheist also claims to be pansexual. I can tell by looking at him. I just saw the video and I was like, I can smell this video.
Wait, who claims to be pansexual? How do you know this?
Mr. Atheist.
Mr.
That's what Patricia says, and I trust Patricia on that.
Yeah, there's something really weird about these people, and I sent you that big rant about like the obsession they seem to have with the personal lives of random Christians, specifically young Christian women, predominantly. It looks like, I don't know.
Yeah, right. They'll be like, here's 11 baking recipes to make cookies to make your Christian family happy, and then they're like, so she's just trying to sugarcoat this theocracy, right? It's just like go fuck yourself. Like like
Yeah.
you know, it turns out you can be a non-Christian and accept that Christians tend to be, you know, fairly decent, wholesome people, even if you disagree with them. Like, you can't take that away from them. You can't take the wholesomeness away from them.
It's true.
All right. I feel like
Yeah.
we should hop into. I have like a million articles ready. We don't have to get through all of them, but we should
Wait,
get through
so-
at least the spooky ones.
When I entered, had you literally not got to any of them yet? Or
Yeah, literally not any of them. We were just talking about whatever comes up.
cool, yeah.
The first one I have though, this one's from 2017, so it's kind of older, but this is like a
Oh,
theme, right?
Oh.
Yeah, we're talking about period blood. Right as the blood comes down my screen. It's like I
Yeah.
planned it. The mystical, magical properties of period blood. So this really ties into the theme that we had during reading through Women Respond to the Men's Movement, right? This whole idea of like, you know, the divine feminine and, you know, different ways of knowing. This was something that if you've read Christina Hoff Sommers' Who Stole Feminism, she actually opened with a segment about how in feminist epistemology, there's like this theory that the reason fluid dynamics are seen as like more complicated is because we don't have enough women in like physics, right? And if we did, they'd have a more intuitive knowledge of this thing because of periods. And that ways of knowing that are very feminine, you know, are non-phallocentric, right? and are more
Allocentric.
yeah, they're more like contextual based and more about like surrounding and engulfing things, right? And like this
Well, I
sort
have
of
one retort to
which-
that. If women aren't phallocentric, then why can't feminists shut up about dick? All they do is talk about dick.
Well, no, I think a better thing would be why do they worship their own vaginas? I think actually TFM like pointed this out. They like literally worship their own vaginas, like the woman, like the pussy hat at the Women's March, and they fucking talk about their period blood and all that shit, and they think it's art, like spread it on a fucking paper, like.
Well, that's because they are a bunch of cunts.
Oh, yeah,
No, I
someone
think
did a-
it's
Someone did like a parody, right? Of like what if men's rights activists did the shit feminists did, and they're like making like semen sculptures and stuff.
yeah. But like I think
I'm fairly
know.
permissive. Like I wouldn't have a problem with that if some weirdo is like, "Hey, I'm an artist. I'm gonna like come on things and make sculptures out of it." I'd be like, "Okay, like you know, you do you. Just don't like gank the public for it. You know, go find like a nice private place where you and all your like weirdo people can check it out. You know, like same thing for the period blood people. Like, okay, you know, that's gross, and
Do your
there's a
thing.
place for gross things. It's just it should be like in the dark."
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not gonna read through this article like frame for frame, but I'm just gonna kind of. Yeah, the Westernmost discomfort with menstrual blood is evident in its relative absence from just about every aspect of life. This is so weird. Like they just think that free bleeding should be the norm, right? As if like bodily fluids just being exposed and viewed as like a very normal thing.
at least for vaginas, like I said, they like worship their own vaginas and like its bodily functions. It seems like it's weird, but it seems to be true. Honestly, I think TFM actually made that point. Really
They
well.
want to bleed. I can make them bleed.
Well, the other thing I wonder though is, would you even, like, even if that was totally socially acceptable, would you even want that, right? Like, you don't want to have to like stain your clothes, but then also I think you want that to kind of be like enclosed in a way just for like sanitary reasons, so that like you're not getting infections or anything. Maybe that's ignorant. Maybe there's no real risk of that, but I kind of feel like that's. Like, to me, that seems intuitive. I don't know. I don't menstruate, so I guess I'm not sure the degree to which, like, just free bleeding could lead to being exposed to, like, pathogens or whatever.
What are you talking about? Boys can menstruate.
Oh, I know. We were bashing Yaniv earlier, so we've all that ship's already sailed. We're definitely transphobes here.
Yeah, your bleeding penis totally isn't mutilated. It isn't mutilated. I think fucking who made that joke? I think it was Paul Elam. It says when he was talking about fucking male periods somehow being a thing, and he mentioned, "Oh no, your penis is bleeding is because it's your own period. It's not because you have a mutilated penis." I thought that was
Really, you
It's
could
dark.
just make for anything that you cut, right? You could just say that's just its expression.
yeah.
Actually, this reminds me of a hot new intactivist argument. In light of the whole like James Luna thing that everyone's talking about.
Yeah.
So what we could argue is, what if your infant male child would later choose to be a woman, and as a trans woman, they choose to keep their plumbing intact. So if it's a girl's penis, you can't cut it.
Exactly.
I think that should be the new intactivist angle, is we say, hey, wait a minute, what if this is actually a girl whose penis you're cutting? And then people will think twice.
Also, it helps with the apparently with the surgery process if you have foreskin still, apparently. So
Oh, that actually makes it like an unironically good argument, right? If they're gonna do the whole, you know, the clit tuck, the nip tuck, right? The whole magic surprise inside out
hot pocket.
vagina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still don't think that's a good surgery. I think that's like the worst thing ever. But like,
oh, terrible idea, terrible idea. But you know,
Horrifying.
but at least voluntary, right? At least voluntary.
Yeah.
So.
Oh,
They
is
can
this,
fuck
is
their
this
bodies
a new
up all they
friend on the
want.
stream? Anybody, if you show up, feel free to introduce yourself.
Is that a
Hey guys,
monkey
it's me,
with a gun?
Fleegan.
Oh, hi.
Oh, hey, you have a new like name on here too. Yeah, so
Oh,
Fleegan. So
that's
yeah,
a
just
name.
let us know how you prefer to be referred to as, because you know
Yeah,
some people
Fleegan is
have
fine.
names.
Forgot.
Yeah. So, and also anything you want to shill. If you like have a presence on the internet, you know, you can let us know if it's a channel or whatever.
Nothing big right now. But thanks.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. But yeah, anybody listening, just so you know, the way I do my streams is I post the Hangouts link in my Discord, and anybody can just hop on. And I'm just gonna keep doing it this way until a point where it becomes unsustainable. But so far, I've been happy with how it turns out. Where I'm at a happy small size where I could just do things this way, and there's never an issue. So we'll enjoy it while it lasts. Let's see. I'm gonna grab the next article because this one was also about. Let's see, menstrual blood magic. 3 spells for your period. Ooh, this one is written by Lisa Stardust, and this was just last month. So this one's new.
Is there still like fucking period shit that we're talking about now?
Yeah, we're segueing through periods and witches because this is a spooky stream, right?
Well, I need to use the restroom anyway, so I'll be back. You can go on without me.
Well, then you're not gonna learn how to do spells with your period blood.
But I got it. I'm on my period right now. It's coming. So
Okay. Oh, I guess we'll maybe you're channeling one of these witches here.
yeah. Okay. I'll be back.
Brie Luna, owner and creative director of The Hood Witch, says menstruation is about empowerment. A lot of people have been taught to be ashamed of their bodies by society, and getting their periods is part of that. But by changing our perspective, we can create a new dialogue and learn to appreciate our monthly flow, Brie said. It marks a time perfect for gently implementing self-care into rituals and symbolizes personal transformation and growth. Let's see. Protection from unwanted negativity, cleaning up our lives. I want to see where the actual spells are.
Well, it's simple. If someone talks shit about you, just throw your menstrual blood at them, and they won't talk shit about you anymore. At least not in your face.
That's a great spell, right? Just throw it at someone. It dispels negative energy. It's a way of really exorcising patriarchal demons from nearby. Let's see. It says menstrual blood can be used in spells to ward off evil and protect us. So yeah, you already know. You're a menstrual blood witch. You didn't even know this. Let's see. Blue June, host of Mystic Witch Podcast, suggests creating a witch bottle to repel negative vibes from others. Collect any pieces of broken glass, tacks, nails, screws, or anything else you've collected from your journeys that could injure you in a mason jar with your menstrual blood or a used tampon. Seal it tight and bury it near your home for protection from others.
This is so stupid.
I think your spell clearly works much better, right? You just use it actively, but I guess all you gotta do is bury it, and it'll sense it.
Well, maybe this spell is incomplete. It's supposed to be like not just menstrual blood, but paused menstrual blood, and all the sharp objects. If someone steps into it, they'll get paused too. So yeah.
Oh, like a poison trap.
Yeah, biological weapon.
Yeah, Basil says in the chat, well, I'd stay away from someone with a jar of blood and sharps. Yeah, that's good advice. Good advice. See, it says, cleaning up our lives, tarot reader, color magic practitioner, and curator Sarah Potter recommends using the potency of menstrual blood to simplify our lives. When cutting the cord from someone or something just won't fix a problem. This means using it to banish anyone who's causing pain. Okay, so this is your idea. Each one sounds like that's what it is. Okay, collect your menstrual blood and add a few drops to a small cup of water to use as ink to write a list of people or situations you wish to release from your life. When your list is completed, set it on fire and picture all of that negativity leaving your energetic field. Afterwards, take a cleansing bath or shower, and again, picture the negative energy being whisked away from you and washing down the drain. So,
is nobody going to make a joke about her being named Potter?
No.
I mean, like, it's really, really low-hanging fruit, but so, you know.
Well, what's funny about it is, like, they open this article being like, here's a way to have self-acceptance and to you know, all that's very positive, but then all the spells so far is like, okay, here's how to be a witch and expel evil demons and write names of people you don't like and set it on fire, you know?
I really like that it's all about burying or burning the blood. So that's good. Get rid of that shit.
It's all the same things you do with fetuses, right? Okay. Okay, maybe this is gonna be like the good healing magic. This is gonna be the bell hook section. Heal chakras by becoming one with our bodies. Liz Goldwyn, founder of the Sex Ed, proposes dabbing menstrual blood on a sacral and solar plexus chakras to help alleviate tension. Liz also suggests observing how you feel during each cycle, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Remember, the more in touch with your body and blood flow, the more you can be empowered by your period instead of dreading that time of the month. That's actually probably not bad advice. You probably don't need to actually dab the blood on you. But, I mean, knowing where your plexus chakras are and, like, rubbing them, you know, rubbing any part of your body probably helps. And just, you know, sitting and meditating, yeah, that has benefits.
Well, since you mentioned it, I was, you know, I wanted to, you know, mention that it's, you know, being in touch with yourself sounds like a euphemism for masturbation. Yeah.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, that's part of the game, right?
It's like the female equivalent of smelling your own farts. Like, it's just like one thing after another with this menstrual blood shit. Like, what are they gonna do? What are they gonna do now with their menstrual blood? Do they start eating it? Actually, they probably will.
I like the idea of like MRAs using their like semen in rituals as like a counter thing. Didn't we have, what was it before where it was like there's like the Indian MRAs are like priests versus these feminist witches. What was that article? It was some kind of magic they were doing to like stop the feminist witches there. See, as we said before, the ultimate intent of magic is to be more in touch with our bodies and their connection to the world. So whether or not you believe in magic or want to use your menstrual blood for spells, simply freeing yourself from menstrual stigma can be a form of magic in itself. Well, that's very wholesome.
Yeah. Have you seen that South Park episode when Eric Cartman is like a psychic and he has this psychic battle with all these other psychics and he picks his mother?
Yeah. No, I'm like, no. That was a good one.
That's what it reminds me of.
South Park's been pretty good lately. This recent season, it's refreshing to see South Park kind of get its soul back a little.
Yeah. I've always liked South Park a lot more than Family Guy. I fucking hate Family Guy, actually. It's so boring.
Family Guy went to shit.
The same form.
Family Guy is kind of like maybe you like about 4 seasons of it and then get sick of it. So wherever you start watching, you know, is whatever you want to see. I don't know.
Yeah.
It went to shit a long
Derek,
time ago.
I just copy pasted something from Wikipedia to Discord that might be of interest to what you were talking about just a little earlier.
Oh, what is
It's
it?
kind of, you were talking about semen and such.
Remember when you were
Like
talking
this-
about cum?
Yeah.
Relevant to your interests.
Yeah.
Black Mass. Oh, I've heard of Black Mass. Isn't this
Yeah.
it's like an occult thing, right?
But yeah, it says they would smear their hands with menstrual blood and semen and consume them as the blood and body of Christ, respectively.
Oh, so they were very egalitarian.
And whenever one of the women in their church was experiencing her period, they would take her menstrual blood and everyone in the church would eat it as part of the ritual.
Gross. Gross.
Oh no, that was the thing. That was the thing that triggered it when you were talking about eating it. I remember, like, oh yeah, I remember reading that there actually were people who did that, like in the ancient past or whatever.
Well, there's also the modern Black Mass, it looks like.
Well, yeah, that as well.
Let's see.
The bit I was reading was from like early Catholicism or early counter Catholicism, I guess.
Yeah, it looks like it started with Catholicism. I'm trying to read, let's see. No set of written instructions for performing one from any purported group of Satanists turned up in writing until the 60s. So I wonder if, like, the Satanists started using it around then for, like, their...
Yeah, it's really disgusting.
Yeesh.
Let's see, the French... Yeah, so, yeah, LeVay totally appropriated it. That's funny. It's very funny.
Do you think LeVay ate menstrual blood? I don't think he did.
I mean, I'm sure he told people to, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I mean, LeVay didn't like believe any of this shit. He was just like making
No.
fun of it, but like self-awaredly and like openly.
Right.
So then the last bit here in our little witches theme, monsters, men, and magic. Why feminists turned to witchcraft to oppose Trump. Let's see, when was this one? So this one was August of this year. So this is also fairly recent. One thing I noticed actually is Lana Del Rey had recently tweeted about how she was like trying to put a hex on Trump, which it's very funny. You guys might, I don't know if any Lana Del Rey fans in here.
Is she like a singer or something?
Yeah, she's a singer, and like her music's actually pretty good. Like she does kind of more of like the slow tempo. It's like very soulful. It's pretty good music. I listened to her recent album and I was not really a fan, but like her very early stuff from like 5 or 6 years ago, it's actually very good. She's kind of like a like a sugar baby. Like she's like an epic sugar baby basically. It's like a weird way to put it, but it kind of follows this very stereotypical arc, right? Where it's like she's really young and pretty and messing with a lot of bad boys and making this music that really resonates with people who are kind of making these sorts of choices. And now she's getting older and she's turned to witchcraft and she has an album that's really preachy, complaining about her man-child and how he's not a real man or whatever. And I don't know. Patricia says Cherry is a good song and Shades of Cool. I'm actually not familiar with either of those. The ones I knew were like Blue Jeans, Ride, Born to Die. But anyway, there's just an interesting aside in this this new I guess tidal wave of like celebrities being witches. I'm sure that like Bette Midler is like unironically a witch after being like the most famous witch in media. Let's see. I'm trying to skim through this article to see if anything very interesting. Oh. At the dawn of the Trump administration, witches were suddenly everywhere in the U.S. Neo-pagans used blogs and social media to circulate popular rituals for hexing Brock Turner. Ugh. The Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh and Donald Trump himself. So right there, Brock Turner, Brett Kavanaugh, and Donald Trump. three people who are innocent. Like, three people who've done fucking nothing wrong. Bam, bam, bam. Like... Oh, yeah, oh, they mentioned Lana Del Rey in here. Yeah, she's, I'm a witch and I'm hunting you. Oh, no, that was a quote from Lindy West. I know the name Lindy West, but I'm not familiar with her. Jess Zimmerman, Jaya Saxena. Yeah, writing self-help books about witches. Honestly, I think it's just like a popular grift right now. Like in that that last article, like every single paragraph was like, so and so has this blog, so and so wrote this book, right? With links. I think this is the new feminist grift is make a witchcraft book about, you know, vibrations and period blood.
Vibrations. I've noticed that a lot of vegans talk about that too. For some reason, vibrations. And I have no idea what the fuck.
They have the shakes.
That's just them shaking. No, dude,
Literally
it's because they're magic, okay? Let's see. Half the women I know called their group chats covens. Okay.
Gay. This is so LARPy, I'm sorry. Like...
I'm just scanning through it. Yeah, I don't know how much else. It's just, I mean, because this has been a story for a while, right? Like, ooh, they're doing hexes on these. I think it's a thing though in witchcraft where if you try to like hex people, it backfires. If you try to target people, you know, like it's not supposed to work that way. You're not supposed to like use these for just like selfish, immediate purposes. I suppose they wouldn't see it that way, right? They'd see it as like they're doing some kind of greater good to society. But let me see.
See witchcraft in any traditional way where it's like an equivalent exchange or it has to follow some logic. It's just what they feel good about it, you know. I want it to be like that, and so I'm writing this book. And it's fucking.
Oh, I just lost my screen on my phone. Can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, hold on. I'm just gonna back out of the call for a second. I'll be right back. Because I don't know how the fuck to fix.
They note that because witch actions could be done with a small group and were both fun and political, they quickly spread around the country. So it's just... Yeah. I mean, I'm totally for this. Like, anything that lets them get this negativity out of their system and gets them just away and doing their stupid crap, and they can feel like it works, and they're going to tell themselves it works, they're going to tell themselves that it's making a difference. Like, yeah, just do magic. You know, just go make your covens and just do your witch magic. I think this is actually quite win-win. Oh, they mention our friend Starhawk in here. Starhawk, whose website is my favorite website. I'm going to pull it up just in case anybody watching hasn't seen it. This is Starhawk's website. I think it's starhawk.com. She's basically my hero. I want to be Starhawk when I grow up. What is this? Circles and Cycles Art Studio? No. Wait, is this... Did she upgrade it? Did she upgrade her website because I made fun of her? No! Salmon Journeys? What is this?
Maybe it's different website together.
It's gotta be. I gotta find Starhawk's website. Starhawk.org. Okay, good. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Ah. She's a visionary. I just love this banner, really.
Okay, I'm back.
Ooh, I can join Starhawk on her journeys. No, I'm not gonna do that. But let's see. The San Francisco Bay Area, the center of boomer youth culture in the U.S., saw an explosion of neo-pagan traditions, including the witches' coven that imitated Miriam Semos, or as she soon came to be known, Starhawk. See, the center of boomer youth culture. Okay, yeah. So. Is that really true? Was the Bay Area the center of youth culture for boomers?
Oh, that would explain a lot.
That explains like everything. That explains everything. Man.
Boomers.
Yeah, they talk about the spiral dance and all this. That reminds me, there's actually a goddess movement TV series that I think was out in like the 80s, and I was trying to find it. And honestly, I would pay for it because I feel like it doesn't exist anywhere on the internet. If I saw a copy of it, I would pay money to have it because it's probably like the funniest goddamn thing on the planet. And it's just lost. I forgot what it was called. It had like a really funny name that they mentioned. Alright, we'll move on from the witches. What's the next thing I found? Oh, there's another one. Let's see. These witchy shows are inherently feminist. Okay, so now this is a woman going through things happening in Hollywood and saying these things are feminist. Have any of you guys seen the new Sabrina on Netflix?
Nope.
Wait, what?
They're redoing Sabrina the Teenage Witch. They put a series out on Netflix. I watched like the first episode of it and it just, I don't know, it didn't really hold my attention.
I never watched the original, so
Yeah, it wasn't that bad, but I don't know, it just didn't hold my attention. Let's see what else they mentioned in here. Oh, a new Charmed. I never saw the first, because I think Charmed was a whole series, right? Yeah, I'm thinking of The Craft. So Charmed was the series. I never saw that one. The Craft is such a good movie. I need to rewatch The Craft. Legacies is the only one of the three without an overt feminist agenda, which isn't to say that it's not extremely woke with its diverse cast and blah blah blah. Okay, so for the record, this writer here says if you're looking for some feminist entertainment, she recommends The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Charmed, and what was the third one? I forgot already. Legacies. Yeah, I'm not going to actually read what she has to say about these. We just know that they're woke. That reminds me, I watched a little bit of the new Batman, Batwoman.
Batman.
Yeah, but she's a woman. But like, it's really funny because like this actress, she's like trying to be this like tough, right, kind of very masculine character, but like, she just comes off as like a grumpy twink, right? So this Batman as a grumpy twink with an Asian girlfriend, or whatever. It's just like, what a time to be alive.
Does she another thing that I've noticed, like with like female superheroes, that like, unless like it makes sense, like they have a superpower or something, but like usually they'll like have like this like stupidly like overpowered like sense of like upper body strength or something, like even though they're like 5'5" and they're like throwing like 6 foot tall men over their fucking shoulders basically, even though they have like the regular strength of a human or something.
Yeah, well,
And I
that's
always
something
found-
that is just like taken for granted nowadays, right? It's one of those things that when someone points it out, it just like ruins like so much of entertainment because it's just taken for granted, right? That they can lift the same.
Yeah, but why not
this
why not make female superheroes a little bit more like different and maybe like acknowledge that, like acknowledge that they're maybe physically weaker, so they have to compensate somehow or something. I don't know.
Yeah. They
Like,
had
that
the
just
same
makes no sense.
problem. The same problem in Game of Thrones. I think it was season 5. Except with that, there was no pretense of like superpowers or anything. Was with the Sand Snakes, who were universally hated, pretty much, especially by fans of the books. But yeah, you had these like 100-pound models going into like hand-to-hand combat or near enough hand-to-hand combat with these huge 300-pound 6'6" guys in armor, and it was just absolutely retarded.
Yeah.
The thing I never really understood is that there are like these martial arts like judo where the body strength is not that important, but they never really get the idea to let the women use those.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. But why not just not get into that physical confrontation in the first place. like shoot them or something. Like I don't know. Like maybe they have something like mind control abilities or something cool like that. Or
Well,
I don't know.
one reason to
Like-
do that also is like if you're interested in trying to empower women, giving more realistic depictions of how women can overcome that strength disparity is actually kind of useful, right? Whether it's like outwitting people, or using poison, right? It's just like historically accurate.
Or
Exactly.
Or judo.
called
I like the idea of
assault
judo,
rifle.
Well, those things that you listed in guns are pretty much the only realistic ones. The thing is, even with martial arts, to be honest, a lot of it is LARPing. Like, you do get these guys who, they spend 10 years training indoors in a controlled environment with people matched for them in weight and so on, who don't actually want to hurt them, and who are going judiciously out of their way to avoid going for your eyes or your balls. And then they get it into their head that this means they're quote-unquote ready to fight in a real-world situation. Like, in a real-world situation, it's generally just the physically bigger person who wins the day, unless you're an extreme outlier in terms of skill in a martial art, like, I don't know, jiu-jitsu or something. If you're top tier, like 99.9th percentile, then maybe that could be useful to you, but guns are a much safer bet. And why wouldn't you use guns anyway?
All
Yeah,
else
you
stage
got a
One
point.
thing I
never
want to
used
mention
her.
too is if you're doing martial arts, any I think responsible like martial arts instructor, I think would definitely be echoing that message. Like I remember I did some martial arts. I did the weebiest martial arts ever. I did like Japanese spear fighting, where we'd fight with sticks, right? It was really cool though because like they taught us like how it was historically put in a certain way because you had to like maintain your line because it was like as though you were fighting in like a war with other people next to you, so all of your movements were like in a straight vertical line, and whenever you were sparring, it was whoever was least experienced was the more dangerous person because you're kind of closer to the end of the spectrum where you're kind of swinging a stick at someone, whereas someone who's like very practiced in like this technique, they're controlling their movements a lot,
This is true, yeah. But basically, what I was going to say is all the most dangerous people in the world didn't use their brawn to kill people. They used their head, their brains. Okay, all the most powerful people used, what makes humans the deadliest people. The deadliest animals is their brain. So, I don't think that women are losing anything if you give them a realistic depiction of how a woman could overcome these challenges.
And also
Yeah.
about the size and weight. Like I was attacked by a guy. I was like 2 feet taller than this guy, and I was very drunk. And he obviously was some kind of boxer, and he just didn't really hurt me. Like I'm not fit. I've never trained in any martial arts, but he just couldn't hurt me. It was ridiculous. He just, after a while, it just gave up. Like, this guy really thought he could just take on the tallest guy that he saw that night, and it didn't work. Like, even though he obviously had some training, and it kind of made it more ridiculous for me when I see stuff like that in shows. Like, yeah, even a man who's trained can't really take out a bigger, heavier man just like that.
Yeah. My father kind of learned that because he made me try football in 7th grade. It didn't work out well. I'm like this 5'7" twink and like 120 pounds. So no matter how hard I trained, I could never fucking do it.
Yeah, I was the same, but I didn't even try football usually. Like, I would usually get booted out because of my just lack of care, lack of trying.
Yeah, I quit. I didn't continue it. It was awful anyways. I hated it.
I skipped gym class for like an entire year. I just didn't show up. I would just go and hang out in the library or just hide in the bathroom or something. And then because I noticed that the gym teacher didn't take attendance, right? So I just stopped showing up. And then I realized towards the end that they're going to do the physical test that you need for a grade. So I just showed up again. And then he saw me and he was like, "Shit, where the fuck have you been?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I've been here the whole time." And he's like, "You're fucking lying to me." And I'm like, "Prove it." And like he was yelling at me.
hilarious.
He was yelling at me while eating a pork chop sandwich. This was around the time when like the pork chop sandwiches GI Joe meme was a thing, and like that really affected me because I was really scared, but it was also really funny, and I didn't know what to do. Anyway, that was me in middle school. Gym class was the worst. Fuck that noise. It made me like never want to move ever.
It was okay for me, but
I hated
I always
that
hated
shit.
math.
I was like, why can't I just go home early and play Dance Dance Revolution more?
Yeah. My favorite was art, though. I loved art.
Oh, I was gonna mention one more thing on this topic. I was watching a Shadiversity video about weapons that women can use, and one thing that he mentioned that was very interesting is that very often in like medieval things like Game of Thrones, they'll show women using a bow, right? And people will think like, oh yeah, if you're a woman, just use a bow. And he's like, no, like bows take an incredible amount of strength to use, and like any time you see in fantasy or in fiction where they're like holding a drawn bow, that's like incredibly unrealistic. Like you can't hold it. And he had like a competition with people to see how long they could hold the bow. And like it's like 20 seconds tops, and that's just like all of your strength. Like you never hold a drawn arrow at someone like it's a cocked gun, you know. But he says for women, two-handed swords are actually often a good choice, which is very counterintuitive. You would expect like a shorter, lighter sword to be a good choice, but actually the two-handed sword with its range make it a little bit better. And since you're using two hands, you're kind of offsetting a lot of the strength disparity. Or a crossbow, right? Crossbow doesn't require as much strength as like a proper bow.
So it's kind of like the opposite of what RPGs say, basically.
Yeah, kinda, yeah.
Yeah, with RPGs, usually for bows you need agility, but for swords you need strength. But in reality, bows require more strength than swords.
Well, the other funny thing too is he was talking about the Buster Sword, right? That Cloud has, and he's like, so this literally can't work because if you were to swing it, like it would push your body weight back. Like it's an unswingable sword, like by definition. Which was like very funny. He like, breaks down the physics of it, and like yeah, that's a great channel if you guys don't watch it. You guys ever watch that Shadiversity?
I'm gonna have to look at the video that you showed me still in your comments, or the one that you DM'd me. It goes like Attack on Titan.
I guess he was talking about the Attack on Titan swords and how they have the little like nicks in them and how it doesn't make any sense. Oh, Basil mentioned the witch class in Pathfinder. I actually, that was what I played in Pathfinder. I played the soul, what was it, SRS, the soul something. They're the little fire souls, and they would like run around and attack enemies and then blow up, and then it would make more of them, so you could just like run around and spam it.
Yeah, I remember Shadiversity like crushing my dreams of like scythes being like a practical weapon, because in RPGs I always used like the scythe because I thought they looked badass. And then he said like, no, this is fucking retarded. It's not a weapon. like there's no practical use for it. I'm just like, way to crush my dreams.
Yeah, it's for gardening. It's for gardening. Spoiler alert.
Well, I'm still using it in my RPG, so be quiet.
One thing that me and TFM agree on is spears are totally underrated. He mentioned that in a recent
Spears are overpowered.
Spears are so underrated. They're such a good weapon. Although he was saying in the context of zombies, and I was thinking about it, and I'm like, no, if you're fighting a zombie, like the reason spears are good, right, is because it keeps people away at like a distance, right? But like you can't threaten a zombie with a spear or a gun or a bow, right? They're not gonna think like, oh, I better keep my distance because I don't want to have my spine severed, and that's how I know I die. Like zombies aren't thinking about that. So it's like the whole advantage of range is only really practical when you have that psychological element of like they're trying to avoid, confronting you.
If it has its spine severed, it wouldn't be able to move, though, don't you think?
Well, that's the point, though, is that's the only way to kill a zombie, is you have to separate the head from the body, and typically by severing the spine. So, like, but the reason spears are good is because if you have a spear, people are going to stay away from you. but like zombies aren't gonna think that because they don't think.
Yeah, you probably want a gun for that.
Yeah, or like a chainsaw.
Or a chainsaw.
The chainsaw is probably it will clog with blood really quickly. So
I guess
it's-
you could kind of do like a chainsaw spear, right? I'm sure they make ones for like cutting down tree limbs that are like a long pole with like a buzz saw at the end. That's probably like the ideal.
Yeah,
That'd
now
make that'd
imagine,
make a great.
imagine something really, really heavy like a chainsaw on top of a really long shaft. Like, do you think this is a
No.
wieldy weapon?
You know what it is? No, I got it. You know those like the electric knives, right? That people use for like carving turkeys. Tie one of those fuckers to the end of a stick.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that-
there was a guy who made a crossbow that shoots small electric chainsaws.
Well,
Yeah.
that sounds really complicated.
yeah, but it's also fun.
It
So.
does sound really cool, though. Holy shit.
Yeah,
Okay, so
it's
I want to
really
get to the
good.
bottom of the next article. So we've covered witches. We've touched upon zombies, and priests even a little bit. We're not. Some people are afraid of bugs. Some people are afraid of insects, right? So we're still kind of loosely in our horror theme. I want to figure out if this article is satire or not. There's this
Well, it's
article
National
about a
History
beetle
Museum.
being named after Greta Thunberg.
I think that's fake. That has to be fake.
Okay, let's all guess first. Do you guys think it's real or fake? It's from Natural History Museum, nhm.ac.uk, by Josh Davis, published on the 25th of October of this year. And it says, new species named after climate activist Greta Thunberg. I think this is real.
It can't be.
Kind of sounds weird enough to be real.
All right, well, let's see. Yeah, Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg has been honored with a new species of beetles named after her. The newly discovered Nellopodes gretae. Ashley, did I pronounce that? How do you pronounce this fucking word? Nello, so that's Nelloptodes gretae. It belongs to a
Possibly.
group of some of the smallest known free-living animals. Well, okay, if it's a free-living animal, it can't be a fucking Swedish, right? Let's see, the new species belongs to a family of beetles called Tillidae. I think that P is silent. Patillidae? Ugh. We need to just, like, banish this language from our roots. Despite
The
their
Latin.
global distribution, the beetles are not particularly well known because of their miniature size. They are so small that they are even dwarfed by some unicellular organisms. The beetles are usually found in the leaf litter and soil, feeding on fungal hyphae and spores. While there are a dozen species known from the UK alone, in the tropics their diversity is poorly understood. Yeah, this sounds pretty real.
Damn.
Although with, poorly understood diversity also seems very Swedish to me. But
Yeah,
perhaps they
but-
understand it best of all.
The BBC have an article on it as well. So, I think it's real. Yeah.
Yes, it's real.
I think
The
he's
family
going to
that I
regret
work-
it, though.
let's
Being
see.
named after a fucking bug. Or the bug being named after her, rather.
It says they're not parasitic and are not living inside other creatures. Few of them
Well,
measure more than a millimeter long. But, like,
The,
she's totally
you know, the,
parasitic.
the Russian girl who founded, Sci-Hub, I think she was Russian, she had some entomologist named a new species of parasitic wasp after her. Like, he attached her name into the Greek and the Latin, the way it's done here with this name, and she took offense to it. Like, she took it as a real insult.
Yeah, like, I think she's
That's
going to
really
regret it.
funny.
And the guy, God bless him, the guy was completely autistic. Like, no, I thought it was flattering. I was doing it, to honor you because you did such a great thing making science available to the public and all that. So I decided to name a species of animal that, like, lays its eggs under your skin and all that shit after you. And I thought you'd like that.
Aw. I feel so bad for him because that sounds like I can understand why he'd think that'd be wholesome. I
Yeah.
think, like,
Well, especially
but-
because it's like a sciencey girl, right? Like a sciencey girl
Yeah.
is like a girl who's like, yeah, like I like to dig stuff up. I like to collect worms, Like you think that'd be kind of their attitude, and then The girl's like, oh,
Yeah,
how
you-
dare you?
Yeah, and also it's not like this guy's going around discovering thousands of species to choose from. It probably was the only thing he was able to name at the time, you know.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Oh, if you want to impress a girl, instead be a chemist and invent a new drug and name it after her. That will get the ladies all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure if you named Crocodile after a bitch, she'd be like your Juliet. She'd be.
Well, the thing about it, it's desomorphine. It's the reason it gets bad reputation, not because of the chemical itself, but because usually when people make it, it's not made in a laboratory. It's made by some heroin addicts who don't have money for heroin, and they cook it in their own kitchen from dirty ingredients using not exactly lab equipment. So of course and then they inject this shit, and it wrecks them, not because of the desomorphine, but because of all the impurities and byproducts. And do you think they actually bother with purifying the result, or is just that there's like dozens and dozens of byproducts, which some of them nobody knows what they do, and if you inject this shit, of course your flesh will rot off, but it's not because of the drug itself. It's like, imagine just scooping some something from the ground or some chemical waste and injecting into your system. Do you think it will do you any good?
Fun fact, just as an aside, the NHS sometimes give women, they sometimes give people heroin for severe pain. My mother had it in childbirth.
Well, I mean, it works, so why not?
Yeah. I just think it's funny that. Well, the thing is, they can't just go right ahead and call it heroin, so they don't. They call it by its chemical name, diamorphine, or its original name, and people don't understand that it's the same thing. Like
diacetylmorphine. That's
yeah. So I had to have this conversation with my mother where she was talking about the drug that she was given during childbirth, and she said diamorphine, and I'm like, that's heroin, right? And she's like, no, it isn't, it's diamorphine. And then I had to show her the wiki page, and then she realized it was the same thing.
No, it isn't. The hospital gave it to me. They wouldn't give me that.
Well,
But yeah,
it's so
exactly.
funny how people don't realize that just because something is given by a doctor doesn't mean it's not addictive. It's like, especially given that a lot of people all the time. If you look at history, because remember, heroin used to be a prescription drug at some point, and the problem begins when doctors are too eager to prescribe stuff, because when something new is invented, everyone, it's a miracle cure for everything. So yeah, let's just prescribe it to everyone. What's the worst that can happen? It's
Well, the faith that people put in doctors, that's another conversation I've had with her. I was talking to her about how most prescription antidepressants are barely effective, and she was like, but if they're not effective, then how can the doctors prescribe them?
Well, remind her that at some point there was a medical procedure when someone is rescued after drowning. The medical procedure was to literally blow smoke up this person's ass. That's where the saying comes from. So if it wasn't effective, why did they do that then?
But did it work?
Yeah.
Hey,
Of course not. It's
Yeah.
like,
this assholes just want to get extra money. Like, they'll get away with it, so who fucking cares? Like,
I don't care if you get addicted to heroin.
Wait.
That's what they're at.
Is that where the phrase "blow smoke up my ass" comes from?
yes.
Wow, I didn't know that.
That's nice.
And speaking of smoke, at
I
some
never
point,
understood that phrase. I was like,
tobacco-
when would you ever blow smoke up someone's ass? And someone's like, if they were drowning. And then I'm so scientific retarded that I'd be sitting here like, maybe. Does that work? I don't know.
But the funny thing is that this was from the same period where tobacco smoke was. People thought that tobacco smoke had many medical properties. So, and
Yeah, I don't think
if it
the
had
apple-
medical properties, then blowing it up the ass would make sense, because it actually would be absorbed better than from through the lungs, at least as well as. But
yeah, but there's nothing connecting the lungs to your fucking asshole.
well,
I don't understand.
no.
It's a digestive system.
Wait. That's the thing. The way why people smoke different substances is because a lot of substances are easily absorbed through the lungs into the bloodstream, and the same way a lot of substances are easily absorbed through any, they are absorbed just as well through the colon and
mucous
that's why they're not-
membranes, and it's like the
There's-
Russians who
there's
dipped
practice,
tampons in vodka and put them on their ass to get drunk cheap. Actually
and
works,
also,
I think.
some people absorb drugs through alcohol. It's called plugging, and it's actually
Oh my.
almost as effective as injecting, but a lot safer. Then again, it's not something you would probably do socially because you can snort powder socially or take pills socially, but stuffing drugs up your ass not exactly something.
Wow.
You know
I'd
what?
never do
One
that.
of my articles actually is about putting things in your anus socially. So we're gonna get to that. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. This,
Favorite topic.
Beautiful.
but I did want to mention they invented I forgot what kind of alcohol it was, but they made these like little pods for like shots of I think it was either some kind of rum or whiskey or whatever, and they were just almost like Tide Pods, right? But it's like it was like a palette of like little like aquapod things that you just like pop them in your mouth, and then instead of having a glass, you just drink it that way. So it's actually eco-friendly, right? But also people are saying, dude, people are gonna put this in their ass. Like this is literally like for that crowd. Like this is for the crowd that like sticks alcohol in their ass. Have to deal with like the awkwardness of like trying to get a bottle in there or whatever. Or they just nope, got a little pod, just bam.
I actually don't know how that works. Like I never really ever tried it, but
Well, I think it's just people give themselves like basically an enema, but they use alcohol, and then the alcohol just hits your bloodstream immediately.
oh, okay.
As if personally, I don't have a problem like getting fucked up on alcohol just drinking it. I don't get why people just don't just fucking drink it, but I don't know.
I'm thinking of the South Park episode where they like Carmen like shoves food up his ass and shits out his mouth, and then everyone starts doing it.
Oh yeah.
If you ever saw that episode.
God, it's like I forget how much South Park I've consumed, and then I'm like, shit, that is I do remember that.
Yeah, that's like my favorite episode.
Before I get rid of this article, I just wanted to mention it's kind of funny. The species of beetle is pale yellow and gold, measures just 0.79 millimeters. With no eyes or wings, it is distinguishable by a small pit found between where the eyes should go. And I thought that was kind of interesting because of the theory that Greta has FAS, right? That
She
she's
has
just
what?
like that she has fetal alcohol syndrome. Like, have you seen those photos? I showed it to my friend who's like a doctor, and he was like, "No, you're retarded. This is not the same." And I'm like, "It fucking looks like it. It looks like 8 out of 10 of these things she totally has. Like the smoothed over top of her lip, right, where there's like no indentation." Like, I don't know. It just the description just makes me feel like, is this like the FAS beetle of the beetle world? But I don't know.
Wow.
That was sorry.
We're
Maybe that was a little bit of a
cybervillains.
stretch. But so speaking of stretches, we're gonna talk about anuses.
Stop talking starfish joke.
It's from MammaMia.com. We just discovered people are butthole sunning, and we have many, many questions.
Well, if that area got sunburnt, one imagines that it would be extremely painful.
Okay,
Because
yeah,
the
if it got
skin-
sunburnt. So in the article, I guess the proponents of it say just like 30 seconds
Ah,
of direct sunlight. So they're not saying like you really need to like actually bathe in the sun. It's just a little bit. And it's the same principle, right? The idea that you're trying to absorb vitamin D through your skin. And if you do that through your anus, you'll just get that much more vitamin D that much quicker.
lol.
I mean, I guess, but like Ashley pointed out, there's a sunburn threat, and sunburn on your anus does not sound good.
Yeah, or the prospect of people having cancer in their ass and it's actually skin cancer instead of rectal cancer. It's going to get confusing.
I'm gay, so I'll never have ass cancer, ever, because actually, like a lot of people don't know this, but like stimulating your prostate actually has anti-cancer like effects. Apparently, like it reduces the chance of you getting prostate cancer. So, I thought that was funny because like a lot of like alt-right people, like I have like a few alt-right friends because I can. And those like make fun of me saying, "Oh, I'll get fucking AIDS and like fucking ass cancer." I'm just like, nope, I'm not gonna get ass cancer. I'm actually immune to ass cancer. And I showed them all these articles. And they're like,
isn't prostate and colon different things? So
this is the same fucking thing, basically. It's in the ass.
Man.
But it's kind of funny though, the idea that like you put enough things in your butt and you get like a
I guess it's just seen as gay because you're being penetrated, but apparently he can't get off of on it because like he had like a thing like
yeah, like a
he had
hernia
like
when he was a
hernia
baby or
repair.
something. But he still reviews the butt plugs, which is like even more admirable.
I had a hernia repair as a baby, so I gotta make sure that I'm okay down got down there, honestly. That scared me. It's like I won't be able to feel my prostate. Hello?
But yeah, so this what about a girl giving her man the strap? Is that still gay? That's definitely gay. Cuz that's the thing is there's a huge difference between like shoving something phallic in and out of your butthole versus like putting like the first knuckle in just to kind of massage the prostate a little bit. Like those are two very different worlds.
Yeah.
So yeah, the strap-on's definitely
Or at least
Yeah.
bi.
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, and so yeah, this article is mostly just kind of a joke, but she talks about like, what about the sunburn? Do the assholes wear little hats and sunglasses? And like, that's pretty funny. Yeah, so it's butthole sunning. But she's so skeptical about it, right? And I'm just like, well, no, like I just think that's really intuitive. Like obviously you'd absorb more vitamin D that way. Like I get that it's like you'd have to find a place to like expose your asshole to the sun, which is like probably the most awkward part of it. But I think that that's the most awkward part of it, you know?
So you're saying it's about getting the D inside you through your asshole.
Yes. That's what it's about.
Like Americans are kind. I don't see Americans doing it because they have like a very very like against like public nudity, but like in Germany they have like nude beaches and like no one gives a fuck.
Yeah, I think it's an Anglo thing. It's the same in Britain and I believe Australia and New Zealand too. There are no nude beaches in Britain that I'm aware of, but that's a thing in Europe.
So basically, Germans are just weird Germanic people.
Yes.
You should
French have
conquer
them too.
Well, actually, it's kind of makes sense because apparently in the Middle Ages there was a German tradition when there was a big like a storm or a hurricane, they would show it their asses through the window to make it go away.
What? How does that work?
If there's a storm brewing, they stick their ass out of the window facing the storm to make it go away.
So they're mooning the storm.
Yeah.
To make it go away.
Are they trying to maybe tell the storm that the sun already doesn't shine there, so the storm can fuck off?
Yeah.
Maybe? I don't know.
At least it didn't try to, shoo it away by farting into the direction of the storm. That would have been a bit too much, I guess.
It's kind of like a more hardcore version of the rabbit game. You guys know the rabbit game?
No.
It's when you're sitting around a bonfire and the smoke goes in your face, you have to shout, "I hate rabbits," and then the smoke will stop blowing towards you and towards someone else.
What?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a Minnesota thing or something, but that's what we say, is that if you're sitting around a bonfire and the smoke is blowing at you, instead of moving, you shout, "I hate rabbits." And then if you shout it loud enough, then it'll go away from you, and then someone else has to shout,
Why
"I hate
rabbits specifically?
What happens if I say I hate N-word?
You could go moon the fire so it blows smoke up your ass.
Yeah,
You went full circle.
but if you have hair on your ass, you'll light your hairs on your ass on fire, and that won't be fun.
Okay, but if you're gonna do butthole sunning near a fire, you gotta make sure that you've stimulated your prostate enough to have enough credit to avoid getting prostate cancer. I
Exactly.
think. I think that's how science works.
That's
I
how
don't
that's
know.
how Toto science works.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I had another article that was really funny. Where was it? Okay, so this one's about mummies now. Mummies, ancient Egypt mystery. How 7 sinister deaths gave rise to Tutankhamun curse. So this is like mostly kind of old news. The reason it's an article now is because a bunch of like exhibits from that tomb are now on display. So if you're in there, in that area, in Brit-Bongistan, you could go check out this thing, if you dare, because several mysterious deaths have been, related to Tutankhamun's curse. Are you guys at all familiar with this? That the
Yeah,
people who excavated
the
Tutankhamun's
curse
curse,
is,
they've all died or whatever? Well,
yeah, like
You cannot say that there's like a mummy curse in 2019. It's so culturally insensitive and so racist. You should embrace the cultural diversity of mummies. Don't spread those rumors about deaths. The mummies are religion of peace.
yeah,
so,
I mean,
yeah.
dying is
When
just trans, but in regard to mortality, right?
yeah,
They're just people
I
who
would just
have
say, well, the ship
transitioned mortally.
They wouldn't do shit.
What the fuck is a mummy on the screen? The thing on the screen was
This retard in this comment section just makes me want to kill all the humans. Okay, we'll go back to this. Oh no, not this one. Okay. Well, okay, the reason this article is so funny, I'm just gonna kind of TLDR it. It talks about people who like died from various like random ailments, right, after they've excavated the tomb. But then it's also like, and then this person died several years later, and it's like, yeah,
That's a
like
shit
everybody
approach.
has to die eventually. Like they're not immortal, and like none of the deaths are like related to anything. And a lot of them are like, oh, this person had a hand, and then it was on fire, and it's just like, I don't know, it's kind of retarded and reaching the whole thing, but
Yeah, I mean, if they started dying of some mysterious illness after opening a tomb that was sealed for thousands of years, that would be scary because who knows what kind of pathogens can survive. Because bacteria can form cysts that can survive even deep space. So you can awaken in some illness from
Yeah,
long
but
past
like survive
extinct-
in deep space for like 30 minutes, I think.
I
Usually.
remember
Like,
reading recently. Sorry, Toto, go on.
no, I thought like I think I know what you were talking about, like pathogens being able to survive in space, but I think it's only for like a limited amount of time.
Yeah, but some sealed tomb is not outer space, so they can survive literally for thousands of years.
I saw an article recently. I can't remember the species of worm, but it was some variety of worm that had been frozen in the permafrost in Siberia for something like, I think it was 140,000 years, and it's 140,000 years, and it defrosted and came back to life, like it was moving around.
People that died from an old virus. The viruses don't die like that if you're frozen like that.
Yeah,
They're
it
kind of
is.
scared.
It seems to be a growing concern.
pathogens, because that was the first death, right? Is somebody, they had like some kind of a growth or a cyst like on their face, and then the whole thing was, oh, the mummy has one on the same place, woo, right? So the first one like did have kind of a spooky coincidence to it, but like if you can see the screen right now and you're looking at this mummy's face, like, I don't know, like any fucking blemish on your face, you could be like, oh yeah, see, the mummy totally has that too, because like, like mummy, like embalming skincare isn't great, like at least not after so many years, but That was the first one, but then all the rest of them were just like, oh, then this person had a fire. Oh, then this person died of whatever cause, and it was related to the mummy, I think. You know,
Lol.
it's like an ancient forced meme. It's like the original forced meme is Tutankhamun's curse. But now I'm just thinking about like if a pathogen had a way of like infecting tardigrades, would it be invincible?
Well, tardigrades are not invincible. You know, you
I
can
thought they
destroy
were.
them.
I thought tardigrades like nothing can kill them. They're like super
Oh, right, no.
cockroaches.
Come on. You can crush them with like a pair of tweezers and they will die. Like, it's
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that if you like throw something extremely heavy on top of them, they'll just go splat. Like, no, they're not invincible.
yeah.
Well, but
Like,
that's the thing though, is that means we're killing.
They don't age.
Okay, so literally anytime you move an object, you're genociding tardigrades because they cover everything.
Well, they don't cover everything. They can be found almost anywhere, but it doesn't mean that they are literally everywhere.
Oh, I thought they were covering everything. I thought they were literally everywhere, and they're naked little bears with like weird penis faces, and they can live in outer space.
Well, they can survive for short periods of time in outer space. Again, the thing about them being indestructible. It all started with people misunderstanding that they don't die of old age, but it doesn't mean that they are invincible. It's just they
I
don't.
heard,
Oh, they're like
Glad-
vampires. They're immortal, but
They're
not
like
invincible.
vampires.
Okay,
I
just-
heard that
go ahead.
when they're in a vacuum, I think when they're in a vacuum, they can go into some kind of dormant cocoon state where they sort of shrink into themselves, and their metabolism basically stops or almost stops,
Yeah.
and then they
Yeah,
can
that's
last.
what the penis face is for, right? It kind of folds into itself.
Yeah, and then, but even then, it's not like, I think it's like 30 years or something, which is impressive, don't get me wrong, but it's not like forever.
Yeah, this
space.
is really common among microorganisms. Even though tardigrades are complex organisms consisting of many cells, they are still so tiny that there are unicellular organisms that dwarf them in size. So they're tiny, and when you're tiny like that, being able to form some sort of a protective cocoon around yourself for circumstances where you wouldn't survive otherwise is a really good evolutionary adaptation. So that's why a lot of microorganisms have this.
Yeah, we gotta gene splice that crap. That'd be so cool. Like, especially like any depressed person, you'd be like, hey, you know what? You can just go into stasis for a few decades, wake up, we'll roll the dice again, and, if the future sucks, just try again,
Well, that wouldn't work on big organisms. That's first of all, this only works on relatively primitive for life forms, because when your organism is way too complex for that, you cannot just stop and restart it. Not with. Again, it's not quite as dramatic. There are some species of frogs that can be frozen and then thawed out, and they are still alive, but it's kind of more an exception than a rule, because it requires a lot of.
So what you're telling me is once we invent this technology, the only people, if any, who will be able to use it are just like the most basic of bitches. Like the first wave, it'll be a bunch of like white chicks in knee-high socks being like, "Where's my pumpkin spice? Do we have pumpkin spice lattes in the future?"
Well, we can, freeze them and forgot to thaw them out, and nobody would miss them.
There we go. I mean, not there we go. I meant disavow. That's what I meant. Caught myself.
I never actually tried any of Starbucks' like custom-made weird coffees. Maybe I should sometime. It sounds kind of fun.
I actually unironically love pumpkin spice latte.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds interesting.
I mean, you add a bunch of stuff that tastes good all together. It's like you really can't go wrong. But I just find that a lot of drinks are too sugary. Like over here, it's a milk tea, bubble milk tea, is like out of control. My area, I counted, there's literally over a dozen places I can get bubble milk tea within like 2 blocks of where I live.
Yeah, there's a lot of bubble teas near me, actually.
And it's great, but it's always too sweet. I always tell them no sugar. And I only go to the ones that like can deal with the fact that I'm white and don't speak Asian.
Yeah. I'm so lazy that I just take caffeine in pill form now.
Oof.
Yeah, that's weird. That's because you don't like coffee. If you like coffee, then there'd be no need.
Yeah, well, I just like it in as much as it gives me energy. I've never actually liked the taste of it or anything. So, you know, if that's the kind of person you are, you might as well just take it as a pill.
I actually might start drinking decaf because I like coffee that much that I want to drink it all the time, but like the caffeine I don't need.
It's really handy as well because like an Americano, like, you know, one of the tall 12 fluid ounce ones has like, I think it's about 150 milligrams of caffeine, and I can get that just by taking 3 of these pills, and that's it. I've had my Americano, or an Americano's worth of energy.
Great. Now I want to try the powdered alcohol they developed.
This is just bullshit because alcohol. Well, what is powdered alcohol is just some powder that is soaked in alcohol, and it's basically there is no point to it. It's like just I don't know why it was even invented, but it's powdered alcohol. It's just powder mixed with alcohol. That's what it is. And I hate to endorse Thundercock, but Thundercock, when he was still good, made a good video about this. But now his channel is pure cancer, and I don't want anyone to give them views because fuck him. But back when he was good, it was actually a decent video where he explained why this is a stupid thing.
Yeah, the last video of his I watched was the one about the like sun panels and how stupid they were.
Yeah, but he managed to make an entire fucking soap opera out of that. Like, this is one of the things that I didn't like about him, even when he was still watchable. When he just couldn't let something go and just hammered everything into the ground. Like, okay, we get it. Why do you have to make million videos about Anita Sarkeesian? Yes, she's a scam artist. Everyone knows that. Just do something else. And also he started to repeat himself all the time, and half of his got to the point where half of the video is like a retread of his older videos on the same topic. So when you watch 40-minute long videos and 20 minutes of this is just rehashing the same old shit he told you saw before in the previous videos, like what's even the point?
I actually saw one of his videos, one of the more recent ones, because it was recommended about electric cars, the batteries, and the fact that the hydrogen engines are better. That was actually quite short and informative. Like he can make good videos sometimes.
So, well, it's like at this point it's probably a case of a broken clock being right twice a day, because I don't know. But maybe he actually wised up and went back. But I don't think it's probably just a fluke, because I've seen his descent into madness, and it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, it's just one anecdotal thing. Doesn't really prove anything. But at least that one was actually good. I can't argue against that. It was a good video.
Let's see, I can grab another... Okay, so let me see. This Tutankhamun thing is whatever. I'm actually impressed that we did a really good job sticking to like a Halloween theme. I wasn't expecting that. So this one is... Maybe making it a Halloween theme is insensitive, but I don't know if you guys heard about this case. I wasn't familiar with this case before I read this article about it. Navy upholds sentencing of Navy SEAL for posing with corpse. So this one is actually a little bit complicated. And I'm not really in the know. So I would be interested in learning a little bit more about it because there's a lot of kind of twists and turns with it, it seems. So we have, let's see, the U.S. Chief of Naval Operations Tuesday denied a request for clemency and upheld a military jury's sentence that will reduce the rank of a decorated Navy SEAL convicted of posing with a dead Islamic State captive in Iraq in 2017. Admiral Mike Gilday made the decision after carefully reviewing the trial transcripts and the clemency request by the lawyers of Edward Gallagher, said Commander Nate Christensen, spokesman for Gilday, in a statement. Gallagher's lawyer, Timothy Parlator, said they are disappointed in the ruling that will cost Gallagher up to $200,000 in retirement funds because of his loss of rank from a chief petty officer to a first-class petty officer. The decision was first reported by the military online publication Task and Purpose. A military jury acquitted Gallagher this summer of murder for the death of the wounded captive, attempted murder in the shootings of unarmed Iraqi civilians, and other charges during his deployment in Mosul, Iraq. He was convicted of the single count of posing with the casualty, dealing a major blow to one of the Navy's most high-profile war crimes cases. Gallagher was given the maximum sentence of 4 months confinement in order to forfeit $2,697 for 4 months for the offense, but he served no jail time and was only required to pay the forfeiture for 2 months because he spent nearly 9 months in pretrial custody. Under Navy law, Gallagher could have had his rank reduced from Chief Petty Officer to the most junior enlisted sailor because of the time he served in custody, but Gilday opted not to impose that punishment. Palator had argued Gallagher should not have been punished for the photo after serving 19 years and being awarded 2 Bronze Stars. He noted others posing with the body were not punished. Many received immunity in exchange for testifying for the prosecution. Absent a presidential tweet, this is likely to be the final decision, Parlator said. The case was championed by President Donald Trump, who had interviewed to move Gallagher out of the brig, and congratulated him in a tweet after he was acquitted of murder. Parlator said the Navy's case was fraught with misconduct by the investigators and prosecutors who were out to get Gallagher and that they will not be held accountable. Gallagher's trial came after a judge removed the lead prosecutor over a bungled effort that used software to track emails sent to defense lawyers in order to find the source of leaks to the media. The judge determined the effort violated Gallagher's constitutional rights and, before the case went to trial, reduced the maximum possible punishment for the murder charge from life in prison without parole to the possibility of parole. Defense lawyers had argued that Gallagher was framed by junior disgruntled platoon members who fabricated the allegations to oust their chief. The prosecution said Gallagher was incriminated by his own text messages and photos, including one of him holding the dead militant up by the hair and clutching a knife in his other hand. Several SEALs testified that Gallagher stabbed the militant, including 2 who said they saw Gallagher plunge the knife into his neck.
Huh.
So what does posing mean in this context? Like, were they just standing there, or were they acting like adolescents?
Well, okay, from the end of it sounds like it was a proper pose, right? Where he's holding the neck, holding up out of his hair and clutching a knife in one hand. It sounds like that's a proper pose.
Right.
Right? Now, we don't have any contextual information for the others, except that they might have had an ulterior motive. So that's one thing where I can see that a lot of this does kind of hinge on this question of fact of, like, were these disgruntled people who were kind of making crap up? It seems like a lot of that's irrelevant, though, because he wasn't convicted of anything except for posing with the dead body. And it seems like the evidence of him posing with the dead body, like in text messages, that sounds like it's kind of incontrovertible evidence, which seems like a bad look for Trump, right? It's like this guy's posing with a dead body with a knife and grabbing his throat, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it kind of,
So-
you know? Like,
Yeah, either way, he's retarded. Like,
I feel
I don't
like
understand.
the military kind of promotes this attitude, though. I get that, like, okay, I know I'm libertarian, so for me to shit on the military is, like, so fucking blasé. But, like it's the thing, these
you're
new
right, though.
wars,
Like-
these are wars of aggression. Like, these, like, you can't say that you're going and fighting all these things because, like, you're defending your country or whatever. It's like, no, you just didn't have any better options, and that's what you decided to do. And that's why so many military people are, like, depressed and killing themselves, because they realize that, like, they've kind of been sold a lie. Like, they're victims in a sense. Like, I think they don't realize what they're getting into. But also, it promotes this mentality. So I don't know. I don't feel. I'm also not convinced by this argument that's like he served 19 years, therefore we should ignore it. You know?
Yeah, like I don't think he should have served 19 years, but like that behavior should not be tolerated either. Like posing with a dead body, like a human corpse, is just like disturbing, I suppose. Like
Well, the thing is though, yeah, like if you're going into war, you need to be able to do things that are conventionally considered very fucked up. And I can acknowledge there are situations where like that's dirty work that needs to be done. And if people are stepping up and willing to do that, like, you know, there is kind of a sense in which that's admirable, you know? And it's kind of just a shame that like these current wars, like it's sold to people as this like really self-serving and heroic and purposeful thing that you can do, but I don't
yeah,
know. It's kind of like I could have sympathy, especially earlier on before people knew that like the WMD narrative was a bunch of bullshit, you know. Whereas like somebody who signs up to be part of the military and go off to war in like 2018 or 2019, it's kind of like what are you doing, you know? Although I don't know how much more sense did I have at 18. I don't know.
yeah.
But I
you
guess
know,
this guy's been serving for 19 years, so I guess that's part of it too. Is like if you're already serving, then you know at what point do you then say I'm going to stop this career because I don't agree with what the military's doing, right? I guess that's a whole nother question. And like from being in that culture, I can see how that might be really really weird from the outside, you know, or from the inside, I should say.
right. I don't think we should ever be in that situation where we have to go to war anyways.
Yeah, like the
Especially
U.S.
like
really hasn't. Like really, there's very few wars that you can make a good case for the U.S. being involved in.
yeah,
Like the Civil War was completely unnecessary. I guess the Revolutionary War was necessary, like by definition. What else? Vietnam, nobody thinks that was a good idea. Iraq, pretty much no one
yeah,
thinks that was a good idea. Afghanistan, basically no one thinks that was a good idea.
yeah. Um, it's mostly just like acts of aggression, like you said. It would be at least a tiny bit more forgivable if it was at least like a defensive one, but yeah, you're kind of just acting like America's basically the world police. They go around fucking shit up basically, and leaving carnage in their wake. And it kind of makes sense why a lot of countries do hate America, is because they're basically the world police.
I think that there's truth to that, but the other part of it though is that America they're not really the self-appointed world police, right? Like a lot of these conflicts, people kind of defer to America and expect America to do things, right? So like you can see that especially with the issue with the Kurds, right? And with Syria and Turkey, is that they're saying, well, how come America's not doing this? Why aren't they standing up for the Kurds or whatever? And it's all these same people who you know, love to, you know, shit on Bush for being a warmonger, who turn a blind eye to Obama's drone strikes, and then are now demanding that, you know, America amp up its military presence in conflicts that, I don't know. It seems like rational heads that I've seen
Yeah, like
just reject
let
the
let's
idea that we
Islamic
should care about the
shitholes.
Kurds.
Yeah, let the Islamic shitholes kill each other. I don't want to be involved in that. They can have their whole holy wars without me.
Basil has some good comments in here. Let's see. He says, I served. Don't feel bad about. Point out truth. Servicemen and women are the same valid people as anyone else. And it shows bad military bearing to pose that way. PR is also a huge part of military service in the U.S. And it does pay to remember that if we stop meddling in world affairs, that the other powers aren't going to do the same. Doesn't make what we're doing morally right, but it can be complicated. Yeah, and I think all of that's very fair. And I think that there's a lot of narratives that really kind of simplify a lot of it. And, like, I don't talk about foreign policy often just because it's not something that I really focus on that often. Like, I have a principled stance that, of course, would ideally be very, what would be considered isolationist. But at the same time, like, if you watch the recent Democratic debates, their big narrative argument towards intervening and being involved in wars is that we have these obligations towards countries. And that is probably the most powerful way to make that argument, right? That if you set a precedent and you set up an expectation, there's kind of something more evil about having that expectation in place and then betraying it, right? And it's sort of like this question of what do you do, once you've consented to do something that you then can't follow through with. It's like almost more evil than to not, do it in the first place.
Yeah, it's because it seems like you have to follow through on your promises once you've made them, but I guess the contentious issue is whether or not you should do it to begin with. I noticed you didn't mention the Korean War, which is an interesting one when you were going through the list of America's wars. That's an interesting one because, South Korea only exists because of America. Like, I'm just going to say that pretty much up front, in reality.
Yeah, and I don't like war, but I do like K-pop a lot, right? So now I'm sitting here like,
Yeah. America... Well, South Korea is in a bit of an interesting position just now, because if America becomes more inward-looking or more isolationist, loses interest in being the world police anymore and starts withdrawing its, deployments, I think it's the second or third largest one is in Korea. This puts them in a bit of an awkward position because they're surrounded by countries that are adversarial to them, or have been historically. North Korea, Japan, China's probably the closest to them culturally, but they still, I wouldn't exactly say that they're chummy with each other. And it's debatable whether or not they have the means to defend themselves on their own. I'm missing out a bunch of detail. I've been reading some stuff on this from foreign policy experts recently. I don't remember the intricate detail, but there's that issue, and there's also the trade issue because they import most of their the really consequential things to their economy. So they're
I
in
don't think
the
Japan would attack them, though.
No,
I mean, they don't like each other, but I don't think they
but
would.
what might happen is without America, they might be forced into a position where they have to ally themselves with Japan, their former colonial rulers, and that's going to create a situation of
Maybe they should stop being little children
Well,
and grow up about it.
maybe they should, yeah, but unfortunately they're not going to. They will not let it go.
Yeah, but
Well,
I mean,
that
Japan
sounds like
fucks
a
with
them
them
problem.
too, though, right? Like, because they import so much from Japan, right? And then Japan will put in trade measures that fuck over Korea, and then the Koreans, of course, they get pissed because they don't like the Japanese already, and then this shit happens, right? So I could kind of see a situation where Japan might decide, hey, like, I could really starve off Korea's resources right now and say, fuck them. And then maybe China will then see Korea as, like, more vulnerable. And then I'll have China using up its resources to go after Korea. And then from Japan's perspective, they're like, well, I hate the Chinese and the Koreans. So this just, like, is awesome for me. Like, I could... Maybe I'm being a little bit simplistic, but I could see like something like that playing out too.
Yeah, like the biggest two problems here are China and North Korea. I'm not sure Russia would do anything. There's a lot of propaganda. Like, I don't think they're as much of a threat as China is, honestly. But I think like the main two problems here are North Korea and China.
I'm just
Mostly
gonna
China.
say my channel is officially a pro-China channel. Okay, my channel.
China.
We love China on my channel because I live in Hong Kong, so we love the Chinese. There's nothing wrong with China.
Sorry, I was just trying to impersonate the way Donald Trump says China, but it was way too high-pitched. I can't say it the way he says it.
China.
Tiananmen Square never happened either. I don't know what that.
Yeah, no, that was
that
the day
is.
when nothing happened. That's what you call it. Remember, this is the anniversary of that day when nothing important happened.
Yes, and the Winnie the Pooh is just Mandela effect that's actually never existed. Just be clear.
Yeah, I don't even know
going
Winnie the Pooh
back
is.
on
It
the
doesn't
on
even
the
exist.
on the Syria thing, I think for me it was really weird the situation with the Kurds, because Trump said he was going to pull out a long while ago, and they just did not try to negotiate with Assad. And now everybody said, "Oh, he's not going to pull out the troops. He's a liar. He should pull out the troops." Now, oh, he shouldn't have pulled out the troops, but they wanted to create an ethno state with American protection, and we know that doesn't really reduce any kind of tension in the region to do that. From another example, which I won't name.
Israel.
No, that you can name on my channel. I don't give a fuck about that.
Yeah, Israel.
Yeah,
I think.
no, you can.
Yeah,
Small
I
hat
thought it was
question
so
all
obvious
day.
it
I
would
don't
be
give a
funny.
shit about that. I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about nothing actually because the protesters are perfectly civil and the Chinese are perfectly civil and there's no problem. There's nothing going wrong anywhere. So there.
Move along. Nothing to see here.
So what do you think's going to happen if Taiwan ever declares independence?
That's a good question. That's all I got. I don't know.
Yeah, like that's a really precarious thing. I don't know much about it, but yeah, I thought you might be interested in that.
I can't get excited about any independence movement that wants democracy.
True.
You know, and
Yeah,
I get that some people they view that as very petty and very like a weird point of departure, but I just legitimately think like if you haven't thought it through to that point where you realize democracy is a bad idea, then it's not gonna work out in the long run.
Yeah, feminism, suffrage. Yay! I love those things.
And don't forget stuff like the Arab Spring, where everybody was like, "Oh yeah, they're gonna have votes. Oh, they voted for the Muslim Brotherhood. Wait, what?"
Well, there you go.
That whole affair was just so stupid. Like the idea that all of the Arab world, like, and that people have been saying this forever. Oh, they're just 10 minutes away from becoming just like us, from becoming Americans. Like, yeah, it's not gonna happen.
All right. No,
Sorry, what did you say, Toto?
I said ain't
Yeah,
as in
agreed.
deep as in no.
Agreed.
But yeah, because I'm 5 years old. Anyways, let's see. Yeah, the problem with Muslims is like it's mostly just like the problem with like any religious people is because they base their morality off of a holy book instead of like on objective like instead of basing their morals on what is like objectively real. They are basically very stubborn and don't want to ever change how they act because their religion tells them to act this way. And this country that they're trying to populate is saying, no, you can't do that. And they're just going to say, no, fuck you. I'm going to do this. You can't make me. And my holy book gets this say that I get to fucking kill you if you don't let me or something. So
Holy book.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Yeah, I think that the utility of the holy book is that instead of people relying on their better natures to figure out ethical and moral questions, many of which the answer is like as a science, it's a very difficult science, but it's so intuitively obvious what's right and what's wrong. Like if we didn't have these holy books in the way, I do think people would make better decisions overall. Yeah, so I think that is a huge part of the issue. Is like they wouldn't be able to make such bad decisions if they weren't outsourcing it to a fucking book.
right.
It was, hot take, but fuck it.
Hot takes are fun.
I have to decide what I'm going to do on Halloween today. So far, all I know is that the Calimex gives you a discounted burrito if you show up in a costume. And I have the day off, but like it's weird to have the day off like during Halloween day, right? Especially in a country where like Halloween isn't like as big of a deal here as it is in the West. So I don't know.
Burritos. I would never, ever eat burrito. Honestly, I hate them. They
How do
always
you
just
hate
taste disgusting.
burritos?
Yeah, like one of them. Okay, it's probably because my taste buds are ruined because I had one and then I threw up because it was like bad or something, and like you can never eat that same food again without thinking of you throwing
Okay,
up.
but,
so.
but that's something you can work past. You just need to have a burrito
No.
and not throw up and appreciate the burrito, and then the good burrito will be your more recent memory. Like it's the same thing with like if you drink too much of a certain alcohol, right? And then it makes you feel sick, but then like later if you try a little bit of it and you're okay, then you can kind of,
Maybe.
yeah, it's
know.
exposure therapy. It's yeah.
Oh, by the way, Derek, I don't know if you've heard about this, but the Taiwanese, I don't know if it's a thing in the other, what should I call it? The other China, the main China, like with respect to Taiwan, like I don't know what the politically correct nomenclature is there, but anyway, the Taiwanese have their own interesting take on Halloween. Like they have this thing called Ghost Month. It's this weird social custom, from what I've heard, where for 1 month every year, everybody basically becomes schizophrenic and starts saying that they can see ghosts, and they have to do various things to avoid upsetting the ghosts, like having the curtains open at a certain angle, or walking on a certain side of the road, or, I don't know, driving at a certain speed, or being on particular floors of particular buildings, and all kinds of random shit like that.
I know that there's a large like general culture of superstition, especially with like very, I think, kind of conservative or traditional Chinese people. When I lived in China, there wasn't any real presence of like a month where that was a thing that I can recall.
Maybe it's more of a thing in Taiwan, which is really interesting actually, because Taiwan is usually perceived as being more westernized. Like it's more English speaking, I think, than the mainland.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me because I mean, the argument, right, is that the original Chinese government fled to Taiwan, right, during the takeover. So, like, in theory, they're like the original. That either you think that Taiwan is China, like the original China, or you think that the current China won fair and square, right? Those are the kind of the only two perspectives.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see, and the funniest part too is like they just like robbed a bunch of like the ancient treasures from the museums and took it over in a boat to fucking Taiwan, right? So I guess they got the lore like treasures. Like I can kind of see how that might be.
And the traditional architecture too, from what I hear. Whereas a lot of the stuff in the mainland was destroyed in the communist revolution.
This reminds me, there's actually a spooky local story here. There was a grisly murder here in Hong Kong. I wonder, maybe I can find an article about it, actually, instead of trying to recall the details. I don't think it's very long. Let me see. Hong Kong murder.
But yeah, I do think it's interesting that, like, Taiwan has basically a month of the year where everybody becomes like schizophrenic.
Oh wow! So it's called the Hello Kitty murder. All right, so I'm gonna close it out with talking about the Hello Kitty murder. Have you guys heard of the Hello Kitty murder?
I don't live in no.
So this happened back in 1999. So this will be, you know what, that makes this what, the 20th anniversary? Yeah, 20th anniversary of the Hello Kitty murder.
I was 3 when.
So a nightclub hostess was kidnapped and tortured in an apartment in Tsim Sha Tsui.
Yeah.
And now TST, that area. So here's something. In Hong Kong, like the very southern part of it is central, right? And that's what's properly known as Hong Kong. And then things kind of built outward to the north from there. So like where I live is like far north of there. And then this area, TST, is kind of like the southernmost part of the newer area. So there's like a big river, I guess it's like part of the fucking ocean or whatever, dividing this area with central. So like TST, Tsim Sha Tsui, it's like one of like the main like hip urban areas with lots of clubs and bars and restaurants and stuff. And you can go on the Star Ferry to go from TST to Central, and it's like a quick, like, 10, 15-minute little, like, boat ride you can take, or you can just take the metro, like, whatever. But anyway, so the area is like a very urban area near Central, but not quite there. So let's see. So she was kidnapped and tortured in an apartment in TSD after stealing a wallet. She was kidnapped and tortured by 3 men before dying a month later. She was then decapitated, and her head was crammed into a Hello Kitty doll. So
Damn.
yeah, I guess what happened was the Hello Kitty doll was like found hanging somewhere, and then they found like a head inside it. Let's see. So she was 23 years old, named Fan Man Yi, kidnapped by 3 men: 34-year-old Chen Man Lok, 27-year-old, and a 21-year-old. After allegedly stealing a wallet from them, they took her to an apartment at 31 Granville Road, where they imprisoned her. They beat and tortured her daily over a debt dispute of 20,000 Hong Kong dollars, which they say was about 2,500 US dollars. 2,500. After a month of imprisonment and torture, she was killed or died as a result of injuries or drug overdose, dismembered, and her skull was stuffed into a giant Hello Kitty mermaid doll. They discarded most of the other body parts. Only the woman's skull, 1 tooth, and some internal organs were recovered. The missing hostess's remains were found only after a 13-year-old girl, the girlfriend of one of the men, led police to the scene. The 3 men were convicted of manslaughter because the jury ruled the remains were not sufficient to show whether Fan was murdered or died in another way, such as a drug overdose. The underage girlfriend of one of the men testified at the trial in exchange for immunity. That's funny. So this 13-year-old girl testified in exchange for immunity. So, like, in theory, she would have been, like, charged with something. Which, I mean, I guess at 13, yeah, kind of you're an accomplice, but I feel like 13 is very young. I don't know. Like, I can't tell if that's, like, based or a little fucked.
I think it's based.
I don't know.
Did they hold her accountable?
Yeah,
Cool.
I guess it gives me hope for the idea of democracy in Asia. Maybe they'll be like, yeah, no, fuck you, 13-year-old girl. You're gonna fucking be an accomplice to murder if you don't fucking, like, man up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The trio were convicted of manslaughter by a jury after a 6-week trial. Justice Peter Nguyen. Nguyen, that's like a Vietnamese name. That's another interesting thing about Hong Kong is it's very, very multicultural. A lot of Southeast Asians, a lot of Indians. And of course various white expats who mostly are just like fucking woke, so I can't deal with it. But let's see, they were sentenced to life in prison. They stated, never in Hong Kong in recent years has a court heard of such cruelty, depravity, callousness, brutality, violence, and viciousness. And I believe that, actually. Like it's very, very peaceful here. Like, even with all the protests going on, like, people think of it as like this like war-torn area. It's like, I mean, no, for the most part, things kind of go on. You have this huge number of people all living here. Like, things kind of go on as normal for the most part. There's a little bit of vandalism, a little bit of like people will set fires to like block a road here or there, but you go a couple blocks away and things are just kind of as normal. So, and like this is kind of like the most that things have been crazy. Like somebody talked about, for example, trading all of Antifa with the Hong Kong protesters, and I'm sitting here like, if you made that trade, the Hong Kong protesters would immediately have way less freedom. Like it would be a terrible trade. Psychiatric reports describe the 3 members of a secret triad gang society as remorseless. The jury could not rule that the men intended to kill the 23-year-old, which would have meant a mandatory life sentence, but it was determined she died as a result of their abuse. There will be no review of parole in 20 years, i.e. until 20... So there's supposed to be a review for their parole sometime this year. Anyway.
Saying that it wasn't clear if they wanted to kill it, it kind of reminds me of that llamas with hats thing. But Carl, that kills people.
That's the
Jeez.
thing, right? Because like, what's the plan? If you imprison someone and torture and kidnap them for like that long, obviously you're gonna kill them. Like you're
Yeah,
not gonna
like-
let them go so they can testify against you. Like obviously.
Like, I don't think the intent really matters at that point because, like, you're probably just retarded if you think that they're going to survive that. Like, you should still go to jail for life, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And plus they created all of the conditions for all of this happening and everything. But so yeah, that's a interesting little horror story here.
Kind of leaves me wondering at which point they inserted the thing, oh, but she stole a wallet. Like, as if that's gonna justify anything they did.
Yeah, right? Like, I mean,
It's kind of out there. Like, of course we did this. She stole a wallet. Come on. What would you have done?
and that's a funny thing too, right? Of like, oh, okay, so now we have a motive. I guess there's a point where it's like obviously they're implicated, so then therefore they have to kind of give a reason why, and I don't know. I wonder how much of it just like got out of control from like a dispute, like because like maybe she did, like if she stole enough money, right, that like they were really pissed off and like really want to make sure she didn't get away with it, right? Like I could see that being a starting point, but then once you like kidnap and torture someone, what would you expect? Like would you expect like this is gonna be an incentive for her to like leave and then go get the money or give it back or something? Or I don't know. I can only speculate, and of course any way you go is very, very gruesome. But yeah, I didn't realize they called it the Hello Kitty murder. It was just, I remember I had a coworker tell me this story last year because we were talking about creepy stuff around this time last year. But there you go. That's a little bit of a horrible murder that you can know about. But I don't know. I guess I'll look into it and see if anything happens. I guess I'll hear about it if anything happens when they try to like retry this. Apparently sometime this year. But yeah. Well, we've been going a couple of hours, and we covered witches and mummies, and talked about zombies and proper murderers and bugs.
And anal.
And anal and
And
butthole
tardigrades
stunning.
being vampires.
That's right. We mentioned Muslims and Jews. You know, all the scary things under the bed.
Pretty spooky.
Ooh. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. Thanks to everyone for stopping by, and yeah, I want to keep doing streams kind of regularly like this. I was planning on doing it regularly, and then just I didn't. That's a good story.
Yeah.
But the idea for the show and tell streams is you just drop links in the library of my Discord, and then we just talk about them.
Yep.
Yeah, simple enough. Hopefully I'll have Esoteric Entity on here sometime. He expressed some interest. And I think I want to reach out to Jen, Church of Entropy, because she's a fascinating character, and I'd be very happy to have her on here if she'd like to.
I also want to drag Black Knight Patriarch onto here. Like,
I know,
against
that's
his
been
will.
a thing. I want to have a fucking lesbian question stream, and he keeps fucking...
You need to do it. If you're watching this, I'm going to fucking come to your house and like tape you down.
What we need
Like-
to do is we just need to pick a day where we're having that lesbian question stream, and we're going to tell him, this is when it's happening. We're going to be talking about how lesbians control the world, and we're going to do it with or without you. And he won't be able to resist.
Exactly.
That's the plan. So that's
Sounds
No,
like
we
a
need a feminine woman on here to attract him.
Oh, is that it?
Hmm.
Let me just get my makeup and my wig and
There
I'll
we
do
go.
a good partner. Yeah.
Trap a man. That's how you do it.
Anyways,
Alright.
yeah.
You guys keep it easy. Have a good
Yeah.
one.